Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 339. We're doing our week 3 NFL picks against the spread for the 2021 season. Joined once again by Jacob Kamaker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you? And how was our dreadful week 2?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. I'm doing well myself. The weekend, very frustrating. Went 6-10 on my picks for the second straight week. Don't like having back-to-back losing weeks as it is. But that was pretty bad. We went 0-5 in our Super Contest joint entry. Tons of bad luck. There was some where we were wrong, and I'll accept that. But there was a lot, or maybe like 3 or 4 games that I feel like, we could have easily won that, and it just didn't work out in our favor. So tough week, but we'll be able to bounce back. It's still early in the season, so just take it 1 week at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to. I feel like we should have gotten the Eagles game right. They outplayed the Niners. They outgained them. They averaged more yards per play, 1.5 more yards per play. They just couldn't get into the end zone. It was so frustrating that 6 plays from the inside the 5-yard line, they couldn't get in. And then Kyler Murray threw 2 interceptions in the second half to prevent that cover. The Chargers made so many mistakes, and then the Chiefs were up by double digits like most of the game against the Ravens, and they somehow found a way to lose. It was a rough week, but we've had so much success in the past that I'm pretty confident that we can bounce back. So not really too concerned. It was just very frustrating. Like those 4 games could have gone either way. So I think we're going to bounce back. And I like this card too. So I'm excited to talk about it with you. Before we get to the Thursday night game, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would help us out a lot. But let's get right to it. It's the Thursday night game is Panthers at the Texans. This line opened up Panthers minus 7.5. It's up to 8. The advanced spread in this game, I should say, was minus 3.5. That was with Tyrod Taylor. Now we have a change of quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's out. He's on IR. Davis Mills will start for Houston. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I kind of wish Tyrod Taylor was still playing because I would have loved the Panthers at minus 3.5. I still like them at minus 8. Don't get me wrong. But the Texans, with Davis Mills at quarterback, that's going to be tough for them on a short week. Mills was seen as a raw player coming into the draft. He has talent, but it's going to take time for him to develop. So I think it's going to be very tough for him on a short week to go up against a very good defense. The Panthers actually have the NFL's best scoring defense right now. They're allowing just 10.5 points a game, which is pretty impressive. It's not like they've played slouches. I know they played the Jets in week 1, Zach Wilson's first start, but last week they held the Saints to 7 points, which isn't easy to do. We saw them drop a ton of points on the Packers, even though Packers have a dreadful defense, but still same point here. The Saints are a pretty good offense, even with all their weapons that are out. So I think the Panthers are going to be very good in this matchup. Darnold and the Panthers offense, they're playing decently well. I think Darnold still has some room to grow, but he has plenty of weapons around him. DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey are playing great. Texans aren't going to be able to stop them. They weren't able to really stop the Browns at any point in the second half. So I'm going to be on the Panthers here, probably for 1 or 2 units. You could probably convince me to go more here, but I have Nick Mullins syndrome here, where the unproven quarterback gets a week 3 start, and you bet the Raiders money line, and then you look like a fool when the Raiders lose by 30 points. So that is still fresh in my mind, like 3 or 4 years later at this point. But I still like the Panthers for a unit or 2. You could convince me to do more.
I'm not going to convince you to do more. I'm not going to bet this game, so you're more aggressive here with your pick than I am. My concern is betting Sam Darnold with the minus 7.5. Why is Sam Darnold the 7.5 point favorite? I know he's playing Houston. I know Davis Mills is the opposite quarterback, and Mills was dreadful against the Browns in the second half. Like, he just gave him no chance. And it was a shame for Tyrod Taylor, who looked great in the first half. He had the lead. It was a tie game when he left, or maybe they were down by 3, but it was a very close game when he got hurt. And then Mills came in and he gave him no chance. Like, he threw an interception. He had 2 dropped interceptions, so it could have been a lot worse. And now he, like you said, he has to prepare for this game on a short week. It's going to be very tough for him. So I understand your pick. In fact, I'm on the Panthers as well, but I'm not going to bet this game just because, like I said, betting Darnold at minus 7.5. I just can't stomach it. Like, he's not a good quarterback. I know the Panthers blew out the Saints in week 2. The Saints were missing 8 coaches, and I feel like the Saints were coming off that big win against the Packers, and they were flat. This is a tougher spot where the Panthers are, expected to win big. And like you said, maybe Davis Mills is the next Nick Mullins, and he comes out with a win or at least a cover, and this is a close game. So I'm not going to touch this. I'm just going to. I want to say I almost said I'm going to enjoy this game, but this game looks horrible. So I'm just going to watch this game and enjoy it a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, my first thought when looking at this line was that it was over 7, and I got nervous about that because I got hooked on a lot of different games last week. The -3.5 killed me. If I had just bought the hook on some of them, I would have at least pushed, but that's a story for another day. So you're probably convincing me to go 1 unit on this. As I've said many times on this podcast, I cannot avoid the standalone games. It's a problem. So I will be betting on this game. But I totally understand where you're coming from on this. Sam Darnold isn't good. What if he throws 3 interceptions? What if he doesn't take advantage of his weapons? We've seen the Texans play well. David Culley has been a lot better as a coach than we thought, at least from a motivational standpoint. He did have a pretty horrendous error where he failed to accept a penalty and then kicked a punt against the Browns. That was pretty terrible, but the rest of what he's doing is working. So credit to him for now. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, but maybe that wasn't as bad of a hire as we thought at first.
Yeah, give him credit for upsetting the Jaguars. No one really saw that happening, or maybe a few people did, but not really. And then they were competitive with the Browns until Taylor got hurt. Like, who knows what would have happened if Taylor stayed in the game? So you're right. It was definitely a better hire. Like we kind of laughed it off. Like, who is this guy? But he's done a good job so far, except for that blunder. But it's the second game as a coach. I'm willing to give him a mulligan, and he's done a good job. So you were talking about the hook. Speaking of the Cardinals are at the Jaguars. This line is -7.5. It opened 7.5 as well. So not really any movement there. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Cardinals in this one. I don't mind the hook in this one either. The Jaguars are just not a good team right now. Trevor Lawrence has looked awful through 2 games, and it's really not his fault. He's been under constant pressure. Urban Meyer's not an NFL caliber head coach at this point, and it just looks like the Jaguars are not letting Lawrence get comfortable because he's under so much pressure, and I just don't think this is a good situation for him. We saw the Cardinals defense falter last week against the Vikings. I think they're going to be willing to, or they're going to want to bounce back in this one. And this is a perfect opportunity for them to be like, hey, we almost lost last week. Yeah, we were in trouble at the end and we got lucky with that missed field goal. But I think that they're going to just show up and be like, hey, let's just knock the crap out of the Jaguars here. Just prove to everyone that we're legit. Let's have something closer to our week 1 game against the Titans than what we had last week. And Kyler Murray, there's no way that the Jaguars are going to be able to contain him. He's generating 370 total yards and 4.5 touchdowns per game through 2 games. I know he's played the Titans and the Vikings, 2 teams that don't have really good defenses, but the Jaguars don't either. So this is going to be a potential bloodbath for the Jaguars. They could get crushed here. Kyler Murray is going to be incredible so long as he doesn't get pulled in the 4th quarter if it is a blowout. So as much as I don't like betting things with the hook attached to them, this spread seems too low to me. So I'm going to be all over the Cardinals here, probably 2 or 3 units.
Okay, well, I have one concern with the Cardinals, and it's that they play the Rams next week, and the Rams are they've kind of had their number. They beat them twice last year. They blew them out the first time, and the second time both quarterbacks were missing in that game. And that was the Wolf Lord game where the Rams won and they knocked the Cardinals out of the playoffs. The Cardinals, that's a huge game for them. So I wonder if they're going to look past the Jaguars. I know they almost lost to the Vikings, but they still won at the end. They're 2-0. Like, they have to be feeling good about themselves. And I don't know if they're going to take the Jaguars seriously. But that said, they're playing Trevor Lawrence, and there's a lot of hype with Lawrence, and they might feel like they need to get up for this because of Lawrence. So on one hand, I think they may look ahead. On the other hand, I think they may take the Jaguars seriously because of Lawrence. Like, if Lawrence was just some average, first round quarterback prospect, if he was taken 10th overall or something, I think they would definitely look past the Jaguars. But I think they might take Lawrence seriously. If so, Arizona's defensive line should take care of Jacksonville's line easily. And yeah, like you said, the Jaguars are not going to have an answer for Kyler Murray. So I'm on Arizona. Just not going to bet this game because of the possibility that they could look ahead. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think do you think there's a chance Arizona just looks past Jacksonville?
I think there's definitely a chance. You make a strong case for that, but I think because they almost lost last week, they're going to not overlook Jacksonville. I don't think they overlooked the Vikings either, but I think that like near loss is going to be fresh in their mind anyway. And the other thing I'll say, and I like your point about Trevor Lawrence, like he was a hyped up prospect. Like a lot of people said he was the best since Andrew Luck or the best since John Elway came into the league, or Peyton Manning probably would be more accurate. But yeah, so I think Trevor Lawrence, they're going to be motivated to play him, and especially Kyler Murray. If he's the type to get a chip on his shoulder, like he was the number 1 overall pick in 2019, considered to be a weak quarterback class, and he's come out and played at an MVP level through 2 weeks. Granted, the interceptions are a little bit of a problem, but if he cuts down on those, he'll be okay. So I'm interested to see maybe the Cardinals offense comes out and is like, we want to just prove that Kyler Murray is like an excellent quarterback, and all the hype around Lawrence isn't warranted, or maybe isn't warranted yet. So I think there will be enough motivation, but I can get why you'd be worried about them looking ahead, because that game with the Rams is going to be a big one, especially since they're two of the 7 remaining 2-0 teams in the league.
Yeah, it might come down to that game might decide the division. So yeah, I could see them looking ahead. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There is a ton of hype with Lawrence, so they may take the Jaguars seriously. We had a quick question here. Can I trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be my RB2 for week 3? It's not ideal. Like I'd rather have him as flex, but it is an easy matchup after what Dallas did to the Chargers. They just ran down the Chargers' throat. So I think that Edwards-Helaire, coming off that fumble, I think he's going to be looking to redeem himself, and I would play him as an RB2 if you have to, but ideally as a flex. What do you think, real quick?
Yeah, so I'm very angry at Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I had a 30-point lead and was facing Lamar Jackson with Clyde in my big league, and I lost by 4 points. So I'm a little bit upset with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'd recommend keeping him, but my team in that league is 0-2, so I'm desperately trying to trade him to fix my team chemistry because I'm one of those psycho owners that does that sort of thing. But I think the matchup is good. The Chargers are a bit undersized up front, which granted Edwards-Helaire is 2, but he's shifty enough to find holes, and there are going to be plenty of them on Sunday.
Okay. I have more faith in this game, or a stronger conviction in this game, rather. The Colts are at the Titans. This line opened up -5.5. It's still 5.5, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this game.
I also have strong conviction in this one, so I hope it's on the same side. I like the Titans here. The Colts are in dire straits at quarterback. Carson Wentz is going to either play with 2 sprained ankles, not one, two sprained ankles, or they're going to have to trust Jacob Eason, who has thrown a grand total of 5 NFL passes, all of which came against the Rams last week, 2 of which were completed and 1 of which was intercepted by the Rams. So I don't have much faith in that. I know the Titans do not have talent on defense. There's no doubt about it. They've allowed the 3rd most points per game in the league this season at 34 points a game. But they'll have a lot of success against Jacob Eason if he's forced to start, because the Colts don't have a ton of weapons. And I know they have a good offensive line at this point, but I'm just not convinced that they're going to be able to score enough with an injured Carson Wentz or Jacob Eason in at quarterback. So I'm on the Titans here. And I know on the surface, 5.5 points might seem a lot for the Titans because they almost got beaten by the Seahawks and they got crushed by the Cardinals. But again, it's all about the quarterback position here, and the Colts defense hasn't played as well as we thought they were going to this year. They've regressed a little bit. So I think that they could wear down against Derrick Henry as the game goes along, even if Eason or Wentz can keep them in it early. And then the quarterback issues are going to catch up with them. So I like the Titans here. I have them down for 3 units. I'm hoping you're on the same side here because this is one of my favorite plays of the week. But if I'm wrong, let me know why.
I actually like the Colts a lot, with a caveat though. I actually want Carson Wentz out of this game because he's dealing with those 2 ankle injuries, as you said. I don't want Wentz playing on, I was going to say 1 foot, but he's going to have like no feet basically, kind of like that night in the Monty Python movie. That's kind of what reminds me of. Like I don't want him. I don't want to back an injured quarterback. I'd rather have Jacob Eason. And I know Eason has barely played, but he has talent. Like he has good arm strength. He's pretty raw, obviously, like not having played at all, basically. But I like good teams playing backup quarterbacks. Like that tends to be a great situation for these teams. And like you said, the Titans have nothing on defense. Like they have no pass rush. They can't cover anyone. And the Colts, I know they don't have the best receiving talent because T.Y. Hilton's out. Michael Pittman looked good last week. They have Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines, Jack Doyle. Like these guys are okay. And I think Jacob Eason can score points with those guys against Tennessee's defense. And there's a chance that the Colts are going to have a fully healthy offensive line for the first time. Eric Fisher came back last week. Braden Smith might return this week. So that's going to be a nice boon for the Colts. And the advanced spread on this game was -3.5. It's up to 5.5. So, it's kind of substantial movement. I don't know. Like, the Titans are not good enough to be close to touchdown favorites over like what I consider a good team. They just don't have a good defense at all. Like, they have way too many problems. I know they just beat Seattle, but they needed a big comeback for that to happen. And I think Seattle is kind of overrated to begin with. So I wasn't too impressed with that win. So I think this line should be closer to -3.5. Or maybe -4, something like that. Like -5.5. Like, I'm hoping we can get 6, but I like the Colts to maybe even pull the upset. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be decided by a field goal.
Yeah, it's funny. I know you say the Seahawks are overrated. I think the Colts are pretty overrated this year. Like, even if they're fully healthy on offense, like, that offense is okay to me. I like the offensive line there when it's fully healthy, but even still, I think it's downgraded from last year. And I think their defense just has not looked the same to me. I know they came up with some stops against the Seahawks and the Rams, and they've been good at getting making second half adjustments. Matt Eberflus is really good about that. We saw that in the season opener against the Seahawks, but I still think that the Titans just have too many weapons for this defense to properly handle with the way they're playing. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think this is our first like big disagreement this year. So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, usually our disagreements are like, 0 units here, like you have 0 units, maybe 1, like this is a big disagreement. So it's kind of interesting. I will say though, that the Colts defense will get a nice boost if Xavier Rhodes comes back. So that's yet another factor. There are a lot of unknowns right now. Like, if Carson Wentz plays and this line drops a little bit, like I think I might be on Tennessee actually. I don't want anything to do with Wentz and his 2 bum ankles. Like, I'd rather have Jacob Eason play. We had a question: is Eason good? He has great talent. Like, he was once projected to be a first round pick, but just he's raw. 5 career passes. Like, he's just. Like, I don't know, but like the good thing is that unlike Davis Mills, he has a full week to get ready for this game, and he doesn't have a tough matchup. Like we were talking about, Tennessee's defense is bad, and I think Easton should have success. And I just love going with good backup quarterbacks on good teams. Although it sounds like you don't think the Colts are a good team. I guess we'll see. I mean, they're 0-2 right now, so it doesn't sound like maybe they're not a good team. But they've had a lot of injuries, and I think if some of those guys come back, like Braden Smith, Xavier Rhodes, those 2 guys come back, like suddenly the roster is going to be looking a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've never been a big Eason guy, so that's part of the reason here. Like, when he was coming out, I'm like, yeah, he has talent, but how long is it going to take for him to get it? So without having any any regular season reps outside of like 5 passes he threw last week, I'm just wary of that. But hey, maybe he proves me wrong.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We had a question: what is your best online sports book? My favorite is bookmaker.eu. I've been using it for almost 5 years. Pretty happy with it. It's cool because you can select your own spreads. Like, you can either buy points or sell points. You can buy points almost anywhere, but you can actually sell points there, which is pretty cool. I know you like Bovada, right? I use Bovada too. It's pretty good, except for finding props. I just can't do it. But you like Bovada, right?
Yeah, I like Bovada for finding props. If you're in a state where DraftKings or FanDuel is legal to bet onto, those are, like, in my opinion, the cleanest looking sports books online, because I use them for the odds that I put in my articles in Sporting News. I think those are the best organized. So if you're in a state with one of those, I recommend checking those out as well. But I like Bookmaker as well. I just keep most of my money at Bovada.
Yeah, I agree with FanDuel and DraftKings, by the way. They have good sports books. All right, next game, the Ravens at the Lions. This line opened up, Ravens -7.5. It's up to 8. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm like irrationally torn on this one. On the one hand, the Ravens are significantly better personnel-wise. I know they're missing some cornerbacks and some running backs. They have like 15 players on IR, but they're still better talent-wise than the Lions. But on the other end, the Lions have played hard in each of their games. They probably should have covered against the Packers. They somehow painfully covered against the 49ers. I don't want to relive that again. But Dan Campbell has his team playing hard, which is what I anticipated coming into the year. We knew when he was the interim coach for the Dolphins, he got that team, which wasn't great, to play really, really well. And I think this is showing what people didn't really realize when Dan Campbell was hired. He's a good coaching hire. I know people get caught up on the things where he's like, oh, I kind of want a pet lion for the Lions. It's like, yeah, Dan Campbell's a little crazy, but he knows what he's doing, and his motivational skills are really top tier. So I like the Lions. I think they're going to cover a lot of high spreads throughout the year. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of them. So I'm going with the Ravens. I just think the run game advantage is the big deal here. Detroit hasn't been good against the run for the last 20 plus games at the very least. They're the only team that's given up 6+ touchdowns to running backs this year. That includes Aaron Jones's 4 last night. And then they have last year they allowed 29 total touchdowns to running backs. That was 7 more than the next highest, which is just unfathomable. They were the only team to allow 19 or double-digit rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns to running backs. So Tyson Williams and company are going to have a field day. And then add Lamar Jackson into the mix. He's the most dangerous runner on that team, and I think Detroit's going to have a lot of trouble with them. So I'm going to be on the Ravens here in all likelihood. But Dan Campbell has me at least thinking about not betting this one. So I'm interested to see what you think here. Are you on Dan Campbell, the Dan Campbell hype train here?
Yeah, I think for the first time I am on, I guess, the Dan Campbell hype train. Man, remember the Lions used to be really good against the run. It was like 3 years ago. They had such big bodies in the interior, and like now it's like they're horrible. So yeah, that's definitely an advantage. And I just showed a comment saying it's going to be impossible for the Lions to stop Lamar Jackson. And if Lamar Jackson felt like he really needed to win this game and just did what he did against the Chiefs in the fourth quarter, I feel like the Ravens could cover the spread for sure. I just wonder, this is a 17-game season now. Like Lamar Jackson knows that he can't do that every week or he's going to get injured. So I think we might see a bit of a more conservative game plan to make sure no one gets hurt. The Ravens just won the Super Bowl, basically. Like they had never beaten the Chiefs with this regime. They're coming off a big win at the last second, basically. And now they have to play this Detroit team they just saw get basically crushed in the second half against the Packers. I feel like they're going to take this game, a little like less seriously than they normally would have. Like otherwise, like maybe if they're coming off a loss, I think they would play a lot harder. Also, they have a ton of injuries, as you said, like the 15 guys on injured reserve. Like they've either 4 or 5 starters on IR basically right now, depending on formations. And plus, Ronnie Stanley may not play. We'll see. So they have injuries on both sides of the ball, like pretty significant. So like a team that's that banged up, like being favored by more than a touchdown on the road, like I want to take the other team. And I think that the Ravens with their injuries, that should allow the Lions to have a backdoor cover. Like I feel like this is one of those situations where like a team is favored by way too many points. So they're not going to either not going to score as many points as they could, or they're going to allow too many points in meaningful action. And that could allow the Lions to get a backdoor cover. We saw it week 1. We almost saw it last week. And I think they're going to get it here if they need it. I feel like the Ravens are going to win by like 6 or 7 points.
Yeah, and you've convinced me to switch my pick. I said I was torn on this one. I really wanted to be on Detroit. The matchup, run game wise, the matchup scares me, but I think you're right that the motivation for the Ravens might not be there. They'll win, but they may have to pull this one out at the end, or like you said, backdoor cover. The Lions seem like a team that might be able to happen a lot. They really should have had a chance at one, or they had a chance at one against the Packers. They couldn't quite get it done. And if Jared Goff doesn't turn the ball over, that game is closer. That game is not an 18-point game. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and say, oh, the Packers really got right that game. They didn't. The Lions gave them a run for their money. And Green Bay is frankly lucky that didn't come down to a field goal or something. So, yeah, let's ride with Dan Campbell. Maybe I'll dress up as him for Halloween this year. That would be my thing.
That'd be funny. Yeah, the Lions are winning at halftime. Like I think people are going to forget that. And what was very strange is the Lions had a lot of success running the ball in the first half. They ran the ball twice in the second half, not including Jared Goff scrambles. Like they with their running backs, probably the strength of their offense, I would say. They ran twice. Like, how's that happen? I know the Packers had lengthy drives, but you can't try to establish the run at all. I think that was a huge mistake. It's not like they were down by 20 and they had to abandon the run. It was they were either up 3, down 4, or maybe down 11 in the fourth quarter. I just thought that was a big mistake on their part.
Yeah, they should have run the ball more. I'm always a proponent, even if the game's 10 points, so long as you're not at full crunch time, I have to score in a couple minutes type deal, you should keep running the ball. It keeps defenses off balance, and the Packers defense, it's pretty easy to get that unit off balance, but more on that later.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Titans last week. They were down 15 at half, and they just kept running with Derrick Henry, and it paid off. So, all right, next game, the Redskins at the Bills. Line open up. Bills -9. It's either -9 or -8.5, depending where you look. So, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like Washington here. I just think this is a bit much for the Bills. I know they throttled the Dolphins, but that game, you can't read too much into that because Tua got hurt early and Jacoby Brissett just did not look ready for action. I think Brissett's maybe still a slightly above average backup. Maybe he's just average at this point. So I'm not reading too much into them shutting him out. Josh Allen still doesn't look himself. He hasn't taken that step forward we thought he was going to. In fact, he may have taken a slight step backward. He didn't even throw for 200 yards against the Dolphins. And granted, he didn't have to, but he had an interception. That was a tough defensive matchup. So I was looking for more out of Allen there. The problem with Washington is their defense is underachieving big time right now. It's kind of like confusing. You watch them and you're like, this defensive line has so much talent. 4 first-round picks and Matt Ioannidis, and a couple of 7th-round guys that can also get pressure. But they just did not play well against the Giants at all. And I think it has to do with their linebackers more than anything else. They don't have any good linebackers, so they're missing that glue that keeps the defense together. The secondary can play well, but they've gotten lost and miscommunicated a few times too many. I think if they clean up that communication issue, and Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio will work hard to do that, that's going to make it harder for the Bills to move the ball. They'll have to rely on Cole Beasley to kind of go over the middle and lose himself within the linebackers, which can happen, but I don't think that Buffalo is guaranteed to win this game by 9 points. I think this is more like a 6-point spread, 6-point game. So we're getting some really good line value here. Taylor Heineke played very, very well against the Giants. I think he's going to be even better with extra time to prepare. Washington getting the extra few days, that's going to allow them to fix their defensive problems, I think. So we'll see if they can contain Josh Allen, but I like them here, even if they don't win outright at +9. I like them a lot. I think that they're going to have a shot at containing the Bills. So why wouldn't I take them with 9 points in their favor?
Yeah, we're on the same side here. I think the spread's a little too high. I like what you said about that 6 number. That's exactly what I made the spread, was Bills -6. But this is the battle of I don't know, like you probably haven't had a chance to think about this. Like I was just thinking about this today. Like the most disappointing players this season in the NFL. Like I feel like it's somewhat like top 3 might be Josh Allen in some order. Josh Allen, Chase Young, and William Jackson. Like I feel like Chase Young has been okay. Like he hasn't been dominant at all, like we expected him to be. Josh Allen's accuracy is all over the place. Like I don't know what's going on. Like I thought maybe Steelers defense, like when it was a full strength or close to it, like they did a great job on Allen and rattled him. I'm like, okay, he's gonna maybe bounce back against the Dolphins, and they won 35-0, but he was not good in that game. And then William Jackson, they paid him a lot of money. And he hasn't been able to cover anyone. So I like there's probably some other players who are disappointments out there, but I think those 3 are definitely near the top. And it's interesting that they're going against each other. I think the team that has the best chance of bouncing back is probably the Redskins, because they've had extra time to prepare, like you said. Not just for Taylor Heineke, but maybe Ron Rivera can work some magic and get Chase Young off the snide here, because he didn't really get any pressure on Daniel Jones in that Giants game. It was just so disappointing how much time Daniel Jones had in the pocket. And if Josh Allen has that much time, like maybe he breaks out of his funk and has a great game, and I can see that happening. But the Redskins could live up to their potential. They're a great defensive line. Like maybe William Jackson bounces back and they play a close game. So I think given that Allen is struggling heading into this game, I think it's probably going to be a low scoring game, which means you take the underdog. So I like the +9. I'm not in love with it, but I might bet it for a unit or two. Like right now I have 0 units, but if I think about it some more, I might bet a unit or two on Washington.
Yeah, it's funny. I have exactly 1 to 2 units listed here, and it just depends on how confident I am going into this game and which other ones I like. But I think you're right. Those guys have definitely underachieved, especially Washington. William Jackson has really been a disappointment. I'm thinking he has the best chance of bouncing back quickly because he's learning a new system. So I wonder if that's part of it. He was injured during the preseason, so maybe he's getting in his preseason work now and kind of rounding into form in this defense. So we'll see if that theory holds up. But I think they all bounce back eventually. But this line's just too high for me. So I'm glad we're on the same page here, because I was tossing this one back around in my head, and I kept being like, nah, this is a 6-point line.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick says would be betting Washington here if he didn't spend his fun money buying the dip during the market crash. Yeah, there's some good values out there for sure. I guess we can't give financial advice on here, maybe, but I guess we are anyway. But yeah, there are definitely some great buys for sure. Like I always say, AMC is gonna skyrocket eventually, and it's only 38. So yeah, definitely with Patrick in that regard. All right, next game is one I had trouble with, so I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. It's the Saints at the Patriots. This line opened up Patriots -3. It's still -3. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this one was a bit tricky because I like how the Patriots are playing. They're allowing 11.5 points per game. The defense is looking every bit as good as I thought it would, with their players coming back and them adding a lot of infusion of talent. And Mac Jones has not made mistakes. That's all he's been asked to do. The other rookie quarterbacks, we've seen them all make some mistakes, at least the ones that have been playing extensively. So I think Mac Jones is doing what's asked of him. And in this matchup, you would think the Patriots would have the advantage because their defense should be able to confuse Jameis Winston, and their offense should move the ball enough against the Saints to get a 3-point win at home in Foxborough, because the Saints tend to play indoors, and the Saints are also about to go back to New Orleans in week 4 for their return after the hurricane hit down there. And with all that said, I think that the Saints are going to be the side that I'm on here. I'm not betting on them. And this all plays into, in week 4, the Patriots are hosting Tom Brady in his return to New England. That is going to be one of the biggest games of the year, possibly the biggest game of Bill Belichick's coaching career, because that whole thing is a head-to-head of, hey, was Brady the system, or is Belichick the system maker? And Brady just ended up in another good situation. Now, I think that's a pointless debate because I think they're both excellent and among the greatest to ever do their jobs in the NFL. But both of these guys are very prideful and have chips on their shoulder and are going to want to win that game, or at the very least keep it close, because I think New England is at the talent disadvantage in that one. So I think not that they're going to overlook New Orleans from a preparation standpoint, but I think they're going to be at least a little bit distracted during this game. So I think this could end up being like one of those 1 or 2 point games where, maybe the Patriots kick a game-winning field goal to make it 19-17. So I just like the underdog here. I think the Saints are going to be motivated to bounce back. I know they'll be a little distracted by going home too, but I think they're the better side here. I'd rather take them as the underdog in this matchup where both teams are going to be distracted. But I'm not going to bet this one because, 1, I don't like betting against the Patriots unless it's very obvious. And 2, I do think the Patriots could still win this game and cover. So this one's a real toss-up to me, but I would rather take the underdog in this one.
Yeah, for me, it's like if the Patriots are -2.5, I think it'd be on them. If it was -3.5, I'd be on the Saints, with more confidence. At 3, it's kind of a toss-up. I think New England's going to win by 3. I think that's easily the most likely result of this game. And I actually had a debate with Facebook friend Chris W about what you were talking about looking ahead for next week's game. I argued that I didn't think they're going to look ahead necessarily, because this is not like if they were a 7-point favorite or larger, like if they were a big favorite, I think they definitely would. But they're a small favorite. They're only 1-1. It's not like they're 2-0. And the Saints are a couple of games removed from slaughtering the Packers. And plus, I think Belichick has respect for Sean Payton. And I think that, if there's one coach who's not going to look ahead, it's probably Belichick, even though he's going to have to go against Tom Brady in that game, like you were saying. So I think you might be right. I think there's a chance they look ahead, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be the case. I don't think you can bank on that. And it doesn't sound like you are, because you weren't confident in this game. It sounded like, and I'm not either. So I think I'm going to be on the Saints like you are. A couple of things. 1, the look ahead line for this game was a pick 'em. Now, I mean, the smooth 3 points. Then you can argue that it shouldn't have been a pick 'em in the first place. It probably should have been Patriots -3. So that's not a big deal. But the second thing, and this is kind of the tipping point for me to go on the Saints, is that I like betting good teams coming off an embarrassing loss. And what the Saints happened to the Saints last week was embarrassing. They got blown out by Carolina. They're down 8 coaches. They're going to be dying to come back and redeem themselves. So I think it's more likely than not that the Saints cover. But like I said, it's probably going to land on Patriots by 3.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. This is not a game that I would recommend betting. It's just, this seems like perfectly priced. This is exactly how I expect the game to go. I think someone in the chat said that it was down to -2.5. If that happens, then I would probably switch to the Patriots. So this is a line I'll look at later in the week, and maybe we'll decide I like firmer. But more likely than not, I'll stick with the Saints as the underdog just for office pool purposes, and then we'll just bet some other games that I like more.
Yeah, Michael's saying he sees Patriots -2.5. Where do you see that? I would like to know because like every sportsbook I see is -3, but obviously there are so many sportsbooks out there. Like I'm just curious to see find out where you're seeing that line because like I said, I'm seeing -3 everywhere. All right, next game. I like this one a lot more. The Chargers are at the Chiefs. This line open up -7. It's down to -6.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I'm hoping we're on the same side because I also like this one quite a bit, but we weren't on the same page on the other one that we liked a lot. I like the Chargers here at +6.5. The Chiefs defense has been horrible to start the year. They're allowing 469 yards per game, including 202 rushing yards per game. Both of those lead the NFL. No other team is really close to allowing 200 rushing yards per game. And I know that's partially because they faced Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. It's a small sample size, but the point here is that the Chiefs defense is not playing well right now. It's not good. And I know they've played two playoff teams, Browns and the Ravens from last year, but the Chargers are very good on offense. They have Justin Herbert. They have an improved offensive line. They have Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams. Jared Cook is, a fine tertiary target there. So I think that they're going to be able to keep pace with the Chiefs. We've seen them do it recently, too. 4 of the last 5 Chiefs-Chargers games have been decided by a touchdown or less. So, the spread would cover in 3 of those 5 instances and be off by a half a point in the other. And then I think there was one Chiefs blowout mixed in there. But again, that was with Phillip Rivers when he was kind of on the decline at that point. So until Steve Spagnuolo fixes the Chiefs defense, I'm going to be fading them in spots where they're favored by more than a touchdown. They are very bad against the spread recently. In fact, since the beginning of 2020, they're only 8-13 against the spread. That's second worst in the NFL behind only the Jets in terms of percentage. Jets are 6-12. So I'm going to be on the Chargers. And one more note on the Chiefs, that these were just things that bothered me. The way they've been using Chris Jones, it works in certain circumstances, like him as an edge rusher now is helpful for the pass rush, but we saw against the read option and Lamar Jackson, he had no idea what to do at the end position. So, I think part of that was maybe they should have had a better alternative there than moving your best defensive player to a new position. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire usage, you've got to get him more carries and more touches in the passing game. One of the big reasons that he was chosen over DeAndre Swift in that draft, I thought, was because he could definitely catch passes, and he was really good and really shifty in LSU's offense. They're not even trying to manufacture throws to him, so they need to switch that up. I'm angry with the Chiefs coaches right now because of that loss to the Ravens. So I'm not going to trust them to fix things quite yet. So I'm on the Chargers here, and now you can tell me either why I'm right or why I'm wrong.
Well, we have two games we like, and we disagree on both of them. I like the Chiefs a lot here. I love one of the best things I think in football is to bet an elite quarterback coming off a loss. Patrick Mahomes, he's a positive record against the spread off of defeat. He's coming off that national TV loss, and no one in the NFL right now, except for maybe Tom Brady, has a larger chip on the shoulder than Patrick Mahomes. Like we talked about last year, he wanted to destroy the Jets because they passed on him in the draft, even though it was a new front office. No one who was responsible for not picking him was there anymore, and yet he still wanted to kill them. Coming off a loss, I think he's going to be highly motivated to kill the Chargers here. And plus, this is the divisional game. Elite quarterbacks tend to play very well against divisional opponents, especially the first time they play them. As long as they're not a huge favorite, they think they can win easily. I have to think that he's going to take the Chargers seriously. The Chargers almost beat them the first time last year. And so I think the Chiefs are going to bounce back in a big way in this game. And the spread is less than a touchdown. I feel like the Chiefs should be able to win by a touchdown. Something you said is interesting. The Chargers, they have so much talent on offense, Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, even Jared Cook can do well in fantasy sometimes. They have a bunch of big names, plus their offensive line's improved. and yet they scored 20 points in the first game and what 17 in the second one. It feels like they're just not really gelling together. They're making a lot of mistakes. I know they're basically like flagged for every positive play they had against the Cowboys last week, but it's kind of like that's been the Chargers' MO over the years. And I know they have a new head coach and everything, but it seems like they always make blunders like this, and they can't ever live up to their potential. Maybe they will eventually. Maybe they'll have a great game. Maybe Herbert won't throw a killer interception like he has in the past 2 games. But I'm willing to bet that the Chiefs have a better game here than they did against the Ravens. The Ravens really killed them against the run. They had no answer for Lamar Jackson. And the Chiefs tend to be better against the pass than the run. And I think that's the Chargers' strength is the passing game. So I like the Chiefs a lot to bounce back, especially with Mahomes coming off a loss.
Yeah, no, you make a good case there. But I do think I'm not worried about the point total for the first 2 games for the Chargers because – I think they played a very good defense in week 1 in Washington. I know Washington hasn't played perfectly and gave up a lot of yards, but they were in bend with don't break mode that whole game. The Dallas game is a little bit worse, but I still feel like they should have gotten more points out of that game. They just screwed themselves a few times. So I'm expecting some sort of bounce back there. This definitely the elite quarterback coming off a loss and in the division. Definitely enough of a concern for me to consider it. I still think this line is too high. I just don't have faith in the Kansas City defense right now. It would have been one thing if they didn't look good against the Ravens specifically, but they didn't look good against the Browns either. So I'm thinking it might be a little bit of a problem. They're going to have to fix it somehow. Maybe they fix it this week, but I just think that this game's going to be close. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to blow them out, and I think there will be a chance for a backdoor cover even if they win by 2 scores. So I like the Chargers here. I could see the case for the Chiefs, though. I don't think it's completely off base or anything.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good point with saying their defense has looked suspect so far. In the first week, they were missing Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark against the Browns, and both the Browns and the Ravens run the ball very well. The Chargers don't. I know they have Eckler, but he's much better as a receiver out of the backfield. So it's kind of like a different offense. It seems like the Chargers to cover against the Chiefs or even to beat them, they're going to have to pass extremely well. And like I said, I think the Chiefs are better against the pass than the run. So it's kind of like a different sort of offense that they're facing this week. I feel like the Chiefs are better suited to beat the Chargers than they are the Ravens and the Browns, even though they've had the Ravens number. So we had an answer from Michael. He says Fox Sportsbook has the -2.5. I didn't even know Fox had a sportsbook, so it's news to me. So yeah, if you want the Patriots -2.5, you can get them there. Fantasy Football Show, check out his show. It's really good. He says, will Edwards-Helaire rebound? We answered that a couple of minutes ago, actually. We think he will, or maybe it's, I agree with you that they're not really using him correctly, but I think he's going to redeem himself in an easier matchup.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, throw some checkdowns when they're there. I know he likes to make big plays downfield, and he does it better than any quarterback, but sometimes just take what's given to you and don't try to force things. Just get it to Helaire, and that'll help the offense as a whole. That's my spiel about the whole thing.
I completely agree. All right, next game, Falcons at the Giants. It's line open of Giants -3. It's still -3. So who do you like here?
I am on the Giants here. I don't like this game much. I think these are 2 pretty bad teams. I think the Falcons might be the worst team in the NFL right now. Their defense has been absolutely atrocious, and Matt Ryan is a shell of his former self. So I think it's going to take some time for everything to come together for them. And by some time, I mean probably a couple of years. I don't think it comes together this year. I don't like the Giants much either, though. Daniel Jones and all of his weapons looked good against Washington, which was surprising on Thursday night. I think Washington just was poorly prepared for that, or their defense just wasn't gelling, as we talked about earlier. But I think they're going to be better off stopping Matt Ryan at this point, because Matt Ryan is a one-dimensional pocket passer. He doesn't run very well. He can run. He doesn't run well, though. So I think they're going to be able to tee off on him. The Giants have a good defense, so all their offense needs to do is be able to move the ball consistently at home against a terrible defense. I think they get enough points to cover 3-point spread. I have no interest in caring about this game, so I don't really want to bet it. And this is a bigger game for the Giants than the Falcons, because the Falcons have no expectations of competing for a divisional title this year, but the Giants do, because the NFC East was weak, and last year they were very close to winning it. So I think Joe Judge will have them ready to win this one, and he really needs it to quell any potential hot seat talk about his job. So I'm going to be on the Giants here, but I'm probably not going to bet this one.
So I like this game more than you do. I'm on the Giants as well. When I first saw the spread, I'm like, this is probably going to be a 3-point game. Probably take Atlanta, maybe. And then I did some thinking about it, and three things kind of really popped up here for me. One, why is the spread only -3? I think it should be higher. I think that the Giants are better than the Falcons. And I was going position by position, and I could only come up with two positions where the Falcons were better than the Giants. They have quarterback and left tackle. Maybe I'm missing something. You can argue Calvin Ridley over the Giants receivers, but the Giants have many more talented receivers than the Falcons do. So they have the second, third, and fourth best receivers in this game, not counting Kyle Pitts. And then, tight end as well. But Evan Ingram might come back, and, the Falcons are still better there, I think, but it's pretty close. Defensively, though, the Giants are a lot better. They have James Bradbury to stay with Calvin Ridley. They have the defensive line with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams to put pressure on the Falcons. And Matt Ryan's not protected well because Alex Mack is gone. And the rest of their offensive line doesn't look good at all. I don't know what happened to Jake Matthews. He's just having a bad year so far. So I feel like the Giants should win this game. The second thing is, the Giants are coming off extra rest. Now, I mean, Jason Garrett has 3 more days. I don't know what he did with those 3 days, outside of perfecting his clapping technique, but it's still 3 extra days. So I think they should be able to win this game. And the third, like you said, this game means more to the Giants, and the Falcons are coming off what I felt like they put a lot of effort into that game. They got it to 4 in the second half, and they just came up flat the rest of the way. It's going to be tough for them to rebound off such an emotional game, whereas the Giants have had extra time. So I think the Giants are the play here. Plus, the public is on the Falcons. The Falcons are publicly backed underdog. People still think the Falcons are not that bad because they Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. That's basically it. They don't have anything else on that team. They can't block and they can't play defense. So the Giants, I feel like, are better, and I'm going to put a couple units on them.
Okay, the fact that Atlanta's a publicly backed underdog makes me like this a lot more because I had assumed that the public would be on the Giants. But apparently, why is the public still betting Atlanta? I guess they still think Atlanta is good and has weapons. That would be the only thing that I could think of. So, I could be on this for a unit or two then. I think that the Giants, the Giants, I think, are clearly the better team. I didn't want to bet much on this game because I thought, maybe Atlanta would pull it off. But if the public's backing them, then I like this a lot better because usually the public is wrong when they pick underdogs.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's 71% of the money is on Atlanta right now, which I don't understand. That makes no sense. It's people not paying attention. They had the fantasy guys, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts. Matt Ryan used to be great, and Calvin Ridley's a fantasy star. Kyle Pitts will be eventually. But they had nothing else, So
this version of Matt Ryan was the best, though. This one was the best. Matt Ryan at Boston College. That was when he was the best.
Okay, I agree with that. So all right, let's move on to the next game. The Bears are at the Browns. This line open up. Browns -7. It's still 7. Sounds like Justin Fields is going to start this game with Andy Dalton suffering that non-contact injury. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is another line I was very torn on. There was a lot of them on this game slate that I was like, I think this is priced properly. I ended up being on the Bears here, and just my thought process is that the Browns couldn't contain Tyrod Taylor before his hamstring injury. I think Justin Fields could do something similar because he's mobile like Tyrod Taylor, but he has a better arm than Taylor for sure. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to throw accurately and whether or not he's polished enough to make the plays and avoid the mistakes. Because it will be his first NFL start. The Browns defense also isn't playing great. They're playing at a middle of the road level. So I think Justin Fields will be able to move the ball against them enough. And I think the Bears defense should be able to at least slow down the Browns offense. I think they still win probably, but the Bears defense played very, very well against the Bengals. They forced 3 straight interceptions at one point. And if they had gotten anything out of the offense against the Bengals, that would have been a bigger win for them. Justin Fields also threw a pretty bad interception that set up a touchdown in that game. That was his first big rookie mistake. So I don't necessarily want to gamble on Justin Fields, coming in and looking like a franchise savior for the Bears in this one. But I think this line's a little bit high. I think Chicago's not getting enough credit with this line. I think it'll be closer. I think the Browns win, but I think this might be, a 4 to 6 point game instead of 7. So I'm on the Bears here. This is a non-bet for me, though, and my confidence in Justin Fields could change day by day. So if you like the Browns here, you might be able to convince me to join you.
No, I'm on the Bears with you. If you think about this logically, the Texans were within 10 points of the Browns, and that was Davis Mills playing a half. It was a 14-7 game, and then it was 14-14 with Tyrod Taylor in there. It was a close game, and like you said, I feel like Justin Fields should be able to do the same thing, scrambling wise. Maybe he's not there as a passer as like Taylor is yet. Like I feel like he will be soon, obviously, and then he'll obviously exceed him. But he could cause similar problems for the Browns. And so if that was a 10-point game, like why can't this be like a 7 or less, point game, so I think the Bears should be able to stay close. Whether or not I bet the Bears will depend on Odell Beckham's status. Now, in the past, I haven't really cared about Odell Beckham because the Browns still have Jarvis Landry. And plus, like Donovan Peoples-Jones is there, and they have the tight ends, and they could throw to Kareem Hunt or now Felton. But if Beckham's out, that means they're going to be down their top 2 receivers, which means they're going to have to rely on Rashard Higgins and Peoples-Jones. Who Peoples-Jones kind of had so much hype in the summer, and he really hasn't done anything. He had that fumble last week and just didn't do anything else. So if those are the top 2 receivers against what still is a good Bears defense outside of the starting corner position, one of the starting corner positions, I feel like the Bears should be able to keep this game close and allow Justin Fields to get the backdoor cover here if he needs it. But yeah, I think it's going to be like a 3, 4, 6 point game, something like that. And the Bears cover. So like I said, whether or not I bet this game depends on whether or not Beckham can play.
Yeah, and I actually had that written down on my notes, and I skimmed right over it. Yeah, without Jarvis Landry, if they're without Odell Beckham Jr. too, I think the Bears have decent cornerbacks. Like, I like Jalen Johnson. I think he'll be able to take away one of Donovan Peoples-Jones or Rashard Higgins. So I think that would put them at a disadvantage, and that might cause problems for Baker. So I'm glad we're on the same page here. Yeah, this line just seems too high. Like I know the Browns beat the Texans and almost beat the Chiefs, but really their defense hasn't played well enough to warrant the 7-point spread against another good defense.
Yeah, and even if Beckham plays, he may not be 100%. So you have to factor that in as well. Fantasy question here. Dalvin Cook for Gibson, CeeDee Lamb, and Pittman. He needs a receiver. Considering Cook is banged up, I think you should make that trade. Like, he's already injured. He's not going to last the full season. He never has. So I would make the trade. I like CeeDee Lamb a lot, plus Gibson too. Yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer to me because Gibson, he could be a guy in the second half of the season as he continues to get more reps at running back that gets a Christian McCaffrey type workload. I know he didn't do a ton against the Giants, but he also had a sprained AC joint, I believe, on that Sunday and had to play on Thursday. So they were trying not to let him shoulder too much of the load. With the extra 10 days off, he should be in good shape.
Yeah. Speaking of injured players, we get to our final early game. This is a mess. It's Bengals at the Steelers. This line opened up Steelers -4.5. It's down to 3.5 on the news that Ben Roethlisberger is dealing with an injury. Surprise, surprise. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote the quarterback situation might be better if Big Ben doesn't play because he hasn't looked good. It's the same thing as when he had his elbow injury. I think that year that he injured his elbow, you and I both thought that they were going to cover against the Patriots, and they got slammed in that game because Ben couldn't throw the ball really. So I think if he suits up, the team's going to have to continue to dink and dunk its way down the field. That'll allow the Bengals to play up close in the box and limit the run game. So I believe it or not, think if Mason Rudolph plays, I would like the Steelers better. I've said this before, and it's always brought me pain. But this time maybe it'll work out this time. I don't have a ton of faith in the Bengals either, though. Like I want to be on them, but Joe Burrow threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight plays last year. The blocking is terrible. But at the same time, if TJ Watt, Joe Hayden, and Devin Bush all miss the game, he's going to have way more time in the pocket to throw, and they're going to be able to ride Joe Nixon for some yards. We were talking before we started this podcast, the Steelers might be missing half of their starting defense because Tyson Alualu is out and Stephon Tuitt is still out at the moment. So, if they're missing half their starting defense, then yes, the Bengals should cover this, especially if Ben Roethlisberger plays hurt. And even if he doesn't, like, I like Mason Rudolph better than him right now, probably, but I don't like Mason Rudolph as a 3.5-point favorite in any circumstance, even at home. So I'm gonna probably be on the Bengals here unless all of the Steelers defenders come back. Then I don't know what I'm going to do because this game is just such a mess. So this is definitely what I'm going to announce what I'm going to do later in the week. I'm leaning Bengals right now, but this is the most important injury report game of the week because this could go in a number of different directions.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel the same way you do. If I were betting the Steelers, I would rather have Mason Rudolph in there than Ben Roethlisberger with an injury. Like you said, he hasn't looked good anyway, and now he's dealing with an injury. He could barely score against the Raiders, which is a disaster. Like the Raiders defense is not good. and the Steelers couldn't engineer any sort of offense. It was so frustrating watching that. And the defense, as soon as TJ Watt went out, and they were already lost Tyson Alualu in the first quarter. They lost TJ Watt in the second quarter. As soon as that happened, like the floodgates just opened and the Raiders just did whatever they wanted to offensively. And if the Raiders could do that, the Bengals could do that as well. I know the Bengals don't have a good offensive line, but we know for a fact that the Steelers will be down 2 defensive linemen. Tuitt's out, Alualu is out for sure. We don't know about Watt. He could be out. Devin Bush, Joe Hayden, they were close to playing last week, so I think they could return. But if Watt's out, like that's basically their entire pass rush outside of Cameron Hayward. Like he's the only one left, and the Bengals should be able to block him. And Burrow's been hot and cold. Like he had those 3 interceptions in a row, like you said. One wasn't his fault, sure, but like the other two were horrible passes. But Burrow's looked great at times too this year so far, which is good coming off that injury. We didn't know how well he's going to play. He's played a lot better than we expected outside of those interceptions that he's had. So yeah, I like the Bengals here, but like you said, it really depends on the injury report. Like if Roethlisberger suddenly looks great at the end of the week and TJ Watt plays, that's going to make me less enthusiastic about the Bengals. But if we don't hear anything positive about Roethlisberger and Watt is out, and then one of Hayden or Bush is out, suddenly the Bengals are going to look a lot like very appealing, not just with the +3.5, but with the money line as well. So I think there's a good chance the Bengals pull the upset.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm going to be watching those defensive players closely. I think if 2 of them are out, I'm probably going to be on the Bengals. If only one of them is out, then I'm probably not going to bet this game. If they all play, then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'd probably lean Steelers, but I might not bet it because I don't know if I'm going to trust if they're all fully healthy if they come back. But we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think the Bengals are the correct lean at the moment for sure.
Yeah, I think the only way I'd bet the Steelers at this point is if all their defensive players, not named Alualu and Tuitt, if they all come back and Roethlisberger's out and this line drops below 3, like if it goes to like -2 or -2.5 with Rudolph a quarterback, I think that's going to make the Steelers appealing. But that we'll see what happens. Like you said, it's going to be like you said it perfectly. It's going to be the most important injury report update. I just hope that by Friday evening, like everyone's just questionable. I hope that's not the case. Like I hope we have some definitive answers by the end of the week. All right, we have a question here. Is Quentin Cephas worth looking fantasy? Didn't see him in the ad drop. I didn't add him because Tyrell Williams might be back soon, and plus Cephas had that long play on the first drive, and he didn't really do anything outside of that. And I don't really trust any Lions receiver. It feels like any one of them could do well each week. I know Cephas had those 2-point conversions, and he can look good at times, but it's still the Lions. I don't really want to trust him. If you're in a super deep league, like 14 teams, then I would give him a shot, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, and my thing on the Lions receivers is like, yeah, he might be, maybe he ends up being a starter on the Lions at receiver, but that's going to make him the 4th best receiving option possibly at any given moment because they have TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, and Jamal Williams, who Jared Goff loves throwing to all of them. So it's a tough proposition liking any of the Lions receivers. Like I liked Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot in the preseason, and he hasn't even gotten a lot of targets and catches yet. I think he'll break out eventually, but there's an element of patience there.
Yeah, Trinity Benson was in the winning lineup, I think, last night on DraftKings. So you just never know, really. Let's move on to the late games. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. That would help us out a lot. I love this game. I'm hoping we're on the same side here. The Dolphins at the Raiders. This line open up Raiders -5.5. It's down to 4. So who do you like in this game?
Down to 4. Wow. Okay, that's bizarre. I love the Raiders. Then I don't understand why this line's moving that much, unless I might be missing something big here. But the
I should
Dolphins.
say, I don't know if you saw the news. Derek Carr is dealing with an injury. I think that might be it.
That's the news I did not see. Okay, there we go. If that line is moving down, I don't know what I'm going to do here, because my initial thought was I like Jacoby Brissett, or I don't like Jacoby Brissett against the Raiders because Derek Carr will outplay him. But if we're getting Nathan Peterman against Jacoby Brissett, I think I would like Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, if that's the case, then I would love the Dolphins in this case as underdogs, because Jacoby Brissett's better than Nathan Peterman. Nathan Peterman is a preseason hero who once was on pace to throw 10 interceptions in a game. So I would definitely be on the Dolphins at that point. And even if Brissett has kind of regressed from maybe this guy could be a starter to this guy's a good backup, like he can take advantage of the Raiders defense. The Raiders defense has been solid so far this year. Like I've been impressed with all their new additions, but they still have plenty of holes. And if Jacoby Brissett can just distribute the ball effectively and avoid being sacked, that was his biggest problem against Buffalo. They'll be able to move the ball enough and cover here. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on with Derek Carr, so I'm going to read up on that while you talk me through your logic here.
Yeah, Carr's dealing with an injury. He might play. Kind of like no update there. John Gruden said he was kind of optimistic about Carr playing, but we're not sure. And if he does play, he may not be 100%. So that's one of the reasons why I love the Dolphins this week. I feel like I think this line's way too high. I like this spread, this pick'em. It was a pick'em on the advanced spread, and now it's moved up. Originally 5.5 points. It's down to 4. The reason it's down to 4 outside of the Carr injury, the sharps are betting Miami like pretty heavily. And I think this is an overreaction overall for what the spread is. Like given, if the Raiders were 0-2 right now, like they would not be favored by more than a field goal. And, they almost lost to the Ravens. Obviously the first game went to overtime, and you could say, yeah, that was impressive. But I think the Ravens may have been looking ahead to Kansas City as we kind of thought they might in the opener. And then they beat the Steelers in week 2. And that looks good on paper until you remember that, Roethlisberger was dealing with an injury and the Steelers had half their defense out. So I'm not sure how impressive that win was. So if they're playing the Steelers at full strength and the Ravens were focused in that game, they could be 0-2 right now. And I think the spread is inflated for that reason. And then you have the Dolphins. I like Brissett. I mean, he didn't have a good game against the Bills, but the Bills have a great defense. And, he didn't have any reps during the week in practice. He's going to get all the reps this week if Tua is out. And I like good teams playing backup quarterbacks, as I said earlier. I think that's something that's worked very well over the years. And I think the Dolphins are a good team. I mean, they went into New England and won. I know the Patriots could have won in that last second if Damian Harrison fumbled, but it was still a competitive game. And I still think the Dolphins could make the playoffs. I had them at 10-7 at the beginning of the year. So I think the Dolphins are better than people think they are. Plus, the Dolphins are coming off a 35-0 loss. And I like betting good teams coming off a blowout loss. So I'm expecting a much better game from Miami here. They're going to make adjustments coming off that defeat. And the Raiders beating the Steelers, I think might be a little full of themselves. I just don't see what, I know Derek Carr has played well at times this year. In the first quarter, he hasn't in both games, but he's played well at times. I just don't think he should be a 4-point favorite, especially if injured, over what I think is a good team. So I think, at the very worst, I think this is a field goal game, but I think Miami could pull the upset pretty easily. So I love the Dolphins here. This might be my pick of the month.
Yeah, my original theory on this game was, before knowing Derek Carr was injured, I was like, hey, the Raiders are going to want revenge because the Dolphins had that ridiculous Ryan Fitzpatrick game last year. If you remember that, when Fitzpatrick had that absurd throw he completed to basically beat them and knock the Raiders out of playoff contention. So that was part of my thought process. But now knowing Derek Carr is hurt, or at least banged up, even if he plays, that gives me pause enough because Miami's secondary is very good. So Derek Carr could throw some interceptions against them. And I like what you're saying too, because I had this same thought about the Raiders being a little bit full of themselves after beating the Ravens and the Steelers, who were both in the playoffs last year. They might look at Miami and say, hey, we can beat them. They got a backup quarterback. But yeah, so between the confidence and now Derek Carr being hurt, which I don't know how I missed that. I usually don't miss anything. So I'm going to have to look at all my sources and see how I overlooked that. But yeah, I like Miami a lot too. So I'm glad I was made aware of that before making my argument for the Raiders, because that is completely kaput now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, Gruden was optimistic about Carr playing, but I feel like a lot of coaches are optimistic. You know, like Pete Carroll is kind of infamous for that. Like he always says everyone's going to play, and they're out for like 5 weeks. So I feel like Gruden could be the same way. We'll see. But if it's an injured Carr or Peterman, like I feel like you have to like the Dolphins, right? Especially if it's Peterman.
Yeah, if it's Peterman against that defense, we might see a new record for interceptions. Like Zach Wilson might be going, oh, thank God this dude's playing the week after me because he's going to throw more than me. So, yeah, that'll be something to watch for sure. But yeah, now I'm glad we're on the same page on that one then, because I'm pretty excited about that now that I'm aware of the Derek Carr situation.
Speaking of Zach Wilson, the Jets are at the Broncos. This line opened up Broncos minus 10.5. It's still 10.5 for it. You can find it 11, I think, somewhere. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Broncos in this one. I don't fade Teddy Bridgewater against the spread anymore. Like, it's not worth it. Like, he's 37-13-1 against the spread. And this game, I think that the Broncos have a big advantage because Vic Fangio is very good against rookie quarterbacks. He's not quite Bill Belichick level, but he's logged a 19-9 record against rookie quarterbacks since becoming a defensive coordinator in the mid-90s. This includes wins over Peyton Manning and Donovan McNabb and Justin Herbert as a rookie. Most recently, he made Trevor Lawrence look pretty bad last week. And Fangio's defenses have only allowed 33 touchdowns to rookies in 28 games compared to 26 interceptions. So we saw what Zach Wilson did against Bill Belichick. It was not pretty. Vic Fangio should be able to limit him in a similar way. Maybe Zach Wilson gets a little bit more going, but Mile High Stadium is a tough place for anyone to play, let alone a rookie. So I think that he's going to have growing pains here as well. I think Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos are going to see an opportunity here to continue to win. And I think that they can cover this. I'm not wild about the number, but I do think they should cover here.
Yeah, this number's not appealing. Like, it's minus 10.5. I feel like a lot of nonsense could happen. Like the Jets could get a kickoff return or punt return for a touchdown. The Broncos could fumble return for a touchdown. They could fumble a couple of times in the red zone to prevent some scoring opportunities. So, you know, with a high spread like this, you have to get a good team, actually a great team that's focused against a horrible team. And we have a horrible team with the Jets. Like they just seem like miserable. And what you said about Vic Fangio definitely applies to Zach Wilson. I think Fangio is going to really confuse him and cause some turnovers. And are the Broncos a great team? Like, well, they have a great roster, I feel like. And Teddy Bridgewater has played very well so far. You can even make a case for him to be in like the top 5 MVP discussion so far. But I don't know if they're going to be focused though, because, you know, they're 2-0 right now. After this game against a horrible team, they're going to have to play the Ravens and then the Steelers and then the rival Raiders and then the Browns. So they could be looking ahead a little bit. You know, they could be a little full of themselves after that 2-0 start, coming back at home for the first time after that road trip. You know, they could, you know, they're back at home and all their family and friends could be praising them for how great they are, and they could just overlook the Jets. That's my concern here, and that's why I'm not going to bet this game. But, you know, if I were told that the Broncos will be at 100% effort in this game, I would definitely be on them and I would bet them.
Yeah, I've got a 1-unit bet here. Like, I think it's pretty likely that barring something weird happening, the Broncos will cover here. Granted, I should not bet on something weird not happening given how this season has gone so far. But I like them a lot here. And I think because this is their first home game, right? Or did they play at home? Yeah, I think that's gonna play a part in this because the Mile High fans are kind of crazy. So I think that they'll be a little bit motivated to say, hey, let's win this one here. This is an easy matchup, but let's just like take care of business early and make it a celebration the whole time. But I've been wrong on the motivational aspect before, so I won't go more than one unit. I'm not crazy about the number. If it was single digits, I'd like it a lot more, but the 10.5 with the 10.5 hook on there, I'm a little scared.
It's that infamous hook that
Yep.
got us both last week.
So many times.
It's brutal, absolutely brutal. And I wouldn't pay, unless it's like minus 115, I wouldn't pay down for the 10. Like 10 is somewhat a key number. It's like 3, then 7, then 6 are the 3 you should be concerned about. And then after that, there's 10, 4, and 1 are pretty, distant. So, minus 115, I would do it. Minus 120, definitely not do it. So it really depends. All right. Next game, the Buccaneers are at the Rams. The Rams are open up as 1-point favorites. Now the Buccaneers are 1-point favorites. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I got very upset because I had seen that the Buccaneers were 1.5-point underdogs, and then I wrote about it for Sporting News for my best bets article, or one of my articles that'll be dropping tomorrow. And then the line moved like 3 points, almost like 3 hours. And it ended up being just a 2-point move, but I had to scramble on this one. But I'm on the Buccaneers here. I thought that Brady and the Bucs would be ready for this one. This is going to be a big time matchup for him. It's his first game in LA, actually, believe it or not. He has not played there yet. The Rams are a very good team, but they just struggled against the Colts. And in some ways, they were lucky to win in that one. If Carson Wentz doesn't throw a shovel pass to the tight end that goes right to Aaron Donald, they might lose. If Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt at the end of that game, the Rams, may go to overtime against them. So I don't think the Colts are that good as we've been over. So I think that they may have some trouble against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers defense has had some issues to start the season, but their offense has been absolutely incredible. Tom Brady's already thrown for 9 touchdowns. They almost dropped 50 points on the Falcons, which granted it's the Falcons, but still. The Rams will be the toughest defensive test that they've had so far because the Cowboys are nothing special and the Falcons are a disaster. But Tom Brady can pick apart the best defenses. All that the Buccaneers have to do is make sure that they contain the interior pressure. Aaron Donald, if he gets pressure on Tom Brady, that will be a problem. That will be a big time problem. But I still think that the Buccaneers find a way to win this one. I'm on this for 0-1 units, so I'm not super confident in it. I more want to just enjoy this game, but I'm not willing to pick against Tampa Bay when their offense looks so good because Tom Brady, we know he's the king of game-winning drives. If you give him the ball with any amount of time left, he will find a way to drive for a win most of the time. So I'm on the Bucs here, 0-1 units.
So the spread flip-flopped, and my opinion on this game is flip-flopped as well. Like I initially was going to go with the Rams because I think the Rams match up well against the Buccaneers. I think that their secondary is very talented, and they should be able to not really handle all the Buccaneers' receiving weapons because they have so many, but they should be able to slow down some for sure. Like the Buccaneers, the strength of their defense is their defensive line. The Rams protect Matthew Stafford well, whereas the Buccaneers secondary is an issue. And the Rams are throwing the ball very well so far with Matthew Stafford, especially to Cooper Kupp. And with Sean Murphy bunting out for the Buccaneers, I think that's a liability that the Rams should be able to exploit. And I feel like Sean McVay is probably going to have a great game plan prepared for this. And I think I could see the Rams winning this for sure. But then I thought about it, and it's kind of like the same conclusion you came up with. It's like, do I really want to go against Tom Brady in what is basically, a pick'em game? I don't really want to do that. Tom Brady, by the way, is 12-5 against the spread as a favorite of fewer than 3 points. And I'm not a big trends guy at all. Like I hate trends actually, but the kind of like, it's like the logic of it, right? Like Tom Brady is going to win most games, and this spread's a 1-point game, 1-point line rather. And all Brady really has to do is just win the game, and I think there's a decent chance he does that. So I'm going to be on the Bucs, but I'm not going to bet this game. Just going to enjoy it. Unlike the Thursday night game, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, this one's definitely going to be a fun one. I think in my season preview, I had this as the NFC Championship game preview because I had the Rams making the Super Bowl. So maybe this is Tom Brady gets the better of the Rams now, and the Rams get the better of Tom Brady later. Though that's not something I really should bet on, but I can't bet on Brady back-to-back years. Even Brady can't do it.
Yeah, it's not like he wins the Super Bowl every year, right? He loses eventually. So yeah, it should be a fun one for sure. This one I like a lot more from a betting perspective. Seahawks at the Vikings. This line open up. Seahawks -1. It's up to 2. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Seahawks here. I'm not probably as confident in this game as you are, but I was pretty confused as to how the Cardinals nearly lost to the Vikings. Maybe I'm missing something again there, but I think with both these teams coming off deflating losses, the question is which team is better poised to bounce back. I think the answer to that is Seattle. The Vikings have lost twice in a row because of late field goals. The team we thought earlier the team was growing like agitated, and maybe things aren't going as well with Mike Zimmer as the head coach there. So I'm on Seattle because I'm not big on Mike Zimmer right now. And the Seahawks blew it against the Titans. They had a lead, and then they just let the Titans get back in it. Their offense is great. Their defense just needs to show up. Given the success that Kyler Murray had against the Vikings, I would anticipate Russell Wilson will have similar success. All the Seahawks need to do is get 1 or 2 stops on the Vikings, and they should win this game and cover this spread. So that is why I like the Seahawks here. I just feel like they're better poised to bounce back. They're actually playing for something where I feel like, Minnesota, I know they're in a bad division, but it's going to be very hard for them to make any sort of playoff push. So maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm on the Seahawks here.
Yeah, I think like if Kyler Murray didn't throw those 2 interceptions, I feel like Arizona would have won by 8, 10, something like that. And I think we'd think about this game differently, and I feel like Seattle might even be at -3. And also, the Seahawks blew a huge lead. It was 24-9. I feel like they fell asleep at the wheel, and Derrick Henry just went nuts. So if you just stop that game at halftime and you have the Seahawks crushing the Colts week 1 and then crushing the Titans in the first half of week 2, this line would be a lot higher. I think the spread is not as high as it should be. And you were talking about which team is more likely to come back off a loss. I think it's definitely Seattle because, as I said before, I love betting elite quarterbacks coming off a loss. Russell Wilson obviously qualifies, except for his rookie year. He's 25-12 against the spread off a loss. And here he basically just has to win the game. I feel like he's going to do it. Wilson just finds ways to win games against these bad teams, and Minnesota is not a good team at all. I think that the Vikings are going to be, kind of just losing games against the spread for most of the year. They have a lot of problems. They have a lot of injuries. They can't block. They can't cover. Their secondary is just a disaster, for the most part. And how are they going to cover Seattle's receivers? And it seems like Russell Wilson's completing a deep bomb every single quarter this year. I think he's going to keep doing that. I think the Seahawks should be able to win this game. I wouldn't say pretty easily. I feel like they're going to win this game by a touchdown, maybe 10 points.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right about that. And I had written in my notes, it's funny because I keep forgetting to say things and then you say them for me. It's great because I wrote in here, Russell Wilson should do well against the Vikings and he should avoid the turnovers that Kyler Murray committed because Wilson doesn't turn the ball over many times. He's not an interception guy. Maybe he'll throw more this year because Shane Waldron's letting the Seahawks offense be more aggressive, which is paying off big time right now. But yeah, I think this is going to be a Seahawks win for sure. So I like it more. I think part of me right now is just very gun shy because of all the things I've been very confident are going to happen and then they just haven't. So I just need that confirmation bias with me here. But yeah, Seahawks seem like a good bet.
Yeah, I hear you. You need a great week to bounce back, considering what's happened so far. Like I said before, opening the show, all 4 games that we lost, not counting the Rams, I feel like even the Rams maybe, but not counting the Rams, I feel like they all could have gone the opposite direction. And, we easily could have won those games and we'd be more confident in this week. But I like this card more than last week. I have 3 picks of 5 units or more so far. So yeah, like I said, I like this card a lot more. Sunday Night Football, the Packers are at the 49ers. The sign open up 49ers -4. It's down to 3.5. So who do you like in this game?
I like the 49ers here. I know that they're dealing with some injuries in the secondary still, but I don't think the Packers win over the Lions was that impressive. We talked about this earlier a little bit, but They won by 18 points, but it really didn't feel like it. They were losing at halftime. Their defense was playing very poorly. And one thing I don't understand about Matt LaFleur's coaching staff, they fired Mike Pettin to bring in someone new to coach the defense, and they chose Joe Barry. Joe Barry, who has been a defensive coordinator for 4 previous seasons. Every year, his defense finished in the bottom 5. I know he was with the Rams. I know he was under some other great guys like Brandon Staley and was working with the linebackers, and the linebackers were playing well, but Joe Barry just is not a good defensive coordinator. And if not for the Jared Goff turnover and, a 4th down stop the Packers got, the game against the Lions would have been a lot closer. So I think that they're going to have trouble containing the San Francisco offense. I know San Francisco is like Baltimore, a graveyard of running backs right now. But they have enough offensive weaponry between Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Elijah Mitchell has looked good. He's looked good all training camp as well, according to reports out of 49ers camp. So long as he's healthy, they'll be able to run the ball pretty well on these Packers. So I like the 49ers here. I don't love the -3.5 here, but I've been tricked into the Packers playing in California as 3.5-point underdogs and then getting crushed before. I just think the 49ers are going to find a way to beat Matt LaFleur and the Packers. So I'm willing to trust them in this situation. I've got 1 to 2 units on them right now. It could maybe convince me to go to 3 unless you like the Packers.
I don't like the Packers. And the reason why I like the Eagles over the 49ers last week is because, or one of the reasons, I thought the Eagles could stop the run pretty well, San Francisco's run. And they were doing that for almost a half. The Niners had no points before the 2-minute warning in the opening half. And then Brandon Graham got hurt. And I think that changed the entire game. Like no one's really talking about it, but Graham is like a terrific defensive lineman. Without him, the Niners ran the ball well, or at least better than they did beforehand. And then, they scored enough points to cover, like barely cover. It was 17-11 as a 3.5 or 3-point favorite. The Packers can't stop the run at all. Like we know that the Saints absolutely destroyed them again in the running game in week 1. And the Lions, as mentioned earlier, they're running the ball very well in the opening half. And it's so puzzling why they couldn't run the ball or tried not to run the ball in the second half. Obviously Kyle Shanahan's not going to do that. He runs the ball a lot, especially with like Elijah Mitchell's like looking really good. And I just don't see how the Packers are going to stop him. The one concern with the 49ers is their cornerbacks. We'll see if Emmanuel Mosley comes back. If he comes back, it's not that much of a concern. And another issue I have with the Packers is their offensive line. It's like Aaron Rodgers was taking some sacks in the first half of the Detroit game. The pass rush wasn't as prevalent in the second half, but the 49ers have so much of a better defensive line than Detroit. So, we've seen this story before. The Packers play the 49ers, especially in San Francisco. They absolutely get trashed. The 49ers just match up so well against them. And that's why the Packers have such a bad track record against San Francisco. That could always turn, like last week we were talking about how the Chiefs have a great matchup against the Ravens and they have a great track record there. And then the Ravens upset the Chiefs. But I feel like this is different. I think San Francisco, first of all, is a better team. And second, they match up well against San Francisco. So I like against Packers. So I like the 49ers a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page here because this is probably going to be one of my more confident picks of the week. I think that Emmanuel Mosley is going to probably come back too because they cut our guy D Virgin from the practice squad earlier today. So unless they're preparing a move for someone else, it would appear that he might be back. And I have to say, I had to laugh a little bit when you said Kyle Shanahan won't forget to run in the second half. Because of the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl, when it was like they're running it down the Patriots' throat. They've got this. They just got to run it in the second half, and then they didn't, and the Patriots won. But I'm fondly remembering all this, so I appreciate you making me laugh tonight.
Fair point. Yeah, I totally forgot about that game. But yeah, maybe he's learned his lesson and he will not make that same mistake again.
I think he learned his lesson for sure after that. He's like, all right, got to run the ball for sure.
Yeah. Plus, he doesn't have Matt Ryan, to lean on. It's Jimmy Garoppolo. So, all right. Monday night game. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. That would help us out a lot, like I always say. The Monday night game is Eagles at the Cowboys. This line opened up Cowboys -4. It's still 4. Who do you like in this game?
I like the Cowboys. I'm not sure I'm going to bet this. It's a standalone, so I say I'm not going to bet this. I'm going to bet something on it. I don't know how much, probably not much, but I'm worried about the Eagles because of the injuries. You mentioned Brandon Graham. Big time deal there. He's one of their better pass rushers. He's a defensive leader. He's been on the team for like a decade at this point. He's been very, very good player, underrated league wide. So I think his loss is a big deal for them. They don't necessarily, they have some good depth, like Ryan Kerrigan can help replace them a bit, but Kerrigan also has been in the league a long time at this point. And then on the other side of the ball in the trenches, they lost Brandon Brooks, who's their other good Brandon. He's a very good guard, one of the best in the league. So with him out, that's going to take out one offensive lineman. And we've seen how offensive line injuries can snowball a bit for the Eagles. That's not a massive problem just yet, but that's something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. If the Eagles suffer more injuries or if they underachieve with these guys out, I would be worried about it. So I like Dallas a little bit. I don't love them because they're still without La'el Collins, and I feel like the Eagles can get pressure on Dak Prescott. I am a little bit worried, though, without Brandon Graham, if they're going to be able to get as much as I want them to. So I think Dallas is probably going to have a pretty good chance to win this game. Their offense has been very good this year. They're using multifaceted attack. They're really switching it up, game planning differently each week. So this feels like a matchup where they might be able to run like crazy on the Eagles after what they did last week against the Chargers. So I'll be interested to see what the approach there is. I don't love this number, though. I feel like this should be a minus 3 for Dallas. And I don't love it, so I'm going to be on Dallas for 0 units right now.
Yeah, I went the other way with my projected spread. It's I have Dallas minus 4.5. The computer model has Dallas minus 6, so that's more bullish on the home team. Yeah, what you said about Brandon Brooks too, and I mentioned Graham earlier, but Brandon Brooks, that injury was huge. If you look at the difference in record between Carson Wentz being the Eagles quarterback with Brandon Brooks starting and without Brandon Brooks in the lineup, like it's staggering. Like I think heading into 2020, I don't think Carson Wentz won a single game with or at least I forget it was straight up or against the spread, but he never had any sort of success without Brandon Brooks. And the Eagles drafted Landon Dickerson in the second round, and they played him in that 49ers game, and Dickerson was horrible in that game. Now, like obviously he's had injuries in the past. Maybe he's not 100% coming off those injuries. I'm not going to say he's going to fail in the NFL. Like he could probably do well eventually, but he had a horrible game against the 49ers. And granted, it was a tough matchup. And Dallas doesn't have the Marcus Lawrence. So it's kind of a different story here. I think if, Dickerson could play better, then the Eagles have a chance to pull the upset. But I'm not going to count on that. And plus the Graham injury, as you were saying, is absolutely massive. He's so good for them, like not just as a pass rusher, but as a run defender. Without him, the Cowboys are going to have more success running with Elliott and Tony Pollard. So I like the Cowboys here, but these NFC East games are always wonky. Like something weird always happens. I feel like the Eagles could somehow get this win or cover the spread. Maybe it's a 3-point game, but I think it's more likely the Cowboys win by 6 or 7 points. So I'm going to be on Dallas.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. Like you said, the NFC East games are always wonky. We found that out last Thursday in the Giants-Washington game where it was like, oh, yeah, Washington's definitely got this. And then the Giants looked like the second coming of the greatest show on turf all of a sudden, minus the dropped passes. But, yeah, I think Dallas is the right side. If Philly's injury issues continue to snowball, they're going to be a team that I really look to fade because I think people are going to think that they're better than they are after they thrashed Atlanta, which the public loves, which they shouldn't. And they played well against the 49ers, but then those injuries cropped up. So I'll be interested to see how many people are on Dallas versus Philly because Dallas is another huge public team.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like something I feel like I should look out for more is public overreaction to a win over a team that is overrated by the public. Like we're talking about with Atlanta. Like people are betting them this week. People are betting them a week 1. Atlanta might be, except for the Texans who have Davis Mills. Like what the Falcons are probably the worst team in the NFL. So that win doesn't really mean anything, even though it was a blowout. And then week 2, like they they look like they're going to pull the upset, and then they lost those 2 players. So this is a different team without Brandon Brooks and Brandon Graham. Like, it really is. So I like Dallas, but I'm not going to bet this game.
Yep, me either.
Okay, let's go to our survivor picks. I want to refresh your memory, and then I'll do my pick, and then we can do your pick. Your survivor picks are the 49ers of week 1 and Broncos week 2. Mine were the 49ers of week 1 as well, and then I went with the Browns in week 2. So you went with Denver in week 2. I did not, which allows me to go with Denver here. Denver is playing the Jets. Should be an easy win for Vic Fangio. I know I said that there might be a look-ahead potential here for the Broncos, but that doesn't mean they're going to lose to the Jets. I can't see Zach Wilson going into Mile High and just beating Vic Fangio's defense, even though Bradley Chubb's out still. I think the Broncos will win. Might be easily, might be close, but I like Denver here. So what is your survivor pick for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona. I don't think they're going to get an easier game than this one against Jacksonville. And again, like you mentioned, there may be some look ahead here, but there's no way that they're going to lose to Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars. If they do, I'll wear a dunce cap on the show next week. And eventually I'll be wrong in Survivor, but Arizona over Jacksonville is a no-brainer. Like, they cannot contain Kyler Murray. Few teams in the NFL really can at this point. But the Jaguars are not even close to one of them. So I like Arizona in this spot. There aren't going to be a ton of spots to use them in. So get them out of the way now.
Yeah. So Arizona's in my top 3. I was writing up my survivor advice page, which will be on the site on Wednesday. Arizona's in the top 5. Other teams to consider, you could take Cleveland if you didn't last week against the Bears. Justin Fields, I feel like, is not going to beat Baker Mayfield in his first start. The Bills against the Redskins. I know that Josh Allen has disappointed so far, but as a 9-point home favorite, the Bills should be able to win. And then if you want to get it over with and not sweat out on Sunday, you can take Carolina versus Davis Mills. It's going to be tough to back Sam Darnold. You'll feel like a fool if it's like a 9-6 game and you're sweating out the fourth quarter with Sam Darnold because he sucks. But I still think Davis Mills winning on such short rest is a lot to ask, or short preparation is a lot to ask. So a question here: what about the Ravens? I think you could definitely take the Ravens, but I think it's going to be a flat spot. But they should be able to win. Like, the Ravens I feel like are a team you could take any week at home unless they're playing a really good team, right?
Yeah, I think this is one of the easier matchups for the Ravens this year, so I'd say feel free to go for it. But there will be other good spots to play them in. I think that's any team that has like a weaker team in their division. So, like, if you look at the Bengals, I feel like the Ravens should beat the Bengals. So, but whereas in my case, the Cardinals, you don't really want to pick them against any of the NFC West teams in Survivor. So that's why I'm going with the Cardinals here. But Ravens, I could definitely see it. I have no problem with that.
That's a good point. Yeah, the Cardinals definitely don't have an easy divisional matchup. So that is it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. I will tweet out my picks. Hopefully they will not be terrible like they were last week. And yeah, I will post some more betting stuff over at sportingnews.com. You can check out our NFL stuff. I write a lot of different stuff in the lead up to games. I'll have best bets, and I keep track of all the odds in the sports books in a different article there. So, and there are a few best bets listed in there too. And keep an eye on my over-under props in those articles because somehow I'm hitting all of those, but not against the spread. I'm doing poorly. Over-under, I think I'm 5-1. So I don't know how I'm doing that, but that's my research there is working out. So yeah, but in general, follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker, and yeah, always tweet at me if you have any sports questions.
Real quick, we had a question. Would you take Denver twice with 2 picks, assuming 2 different survivor pools? I'm in 3 survivor pools. I'll be taking Denver in all 3. I feel like this is an easy one. It's not like I have a toss up here. I feel like if you have Denver available, this is when you take them. It's the easiest matchup of the year. Like, with the Raiders playing well, they don't have an easy game like Arizona. So I would not waste them. I would not like save them for later. I think you take Denver now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Go with Denver. They should beat the Jets. If they don't beat the Jets, then we don't deserve to win Survivor Pool.
That's a good point. All right, I'm at walterfootball.com. We're going to have an updated 2022 NFL mock draft tomorrow morning. Charlie has a ton of draft content updates throughout the week, which are all great. We have a picks update on Thursday with the Thursday thoughts and Saturday notes and the final thoughts on Sunday. So check those out. And then plus fantasy rankings and start sit and etc. So that is it for this week. I think we're going to bounce back. I'm very confident. I like this card more than I did last week. So let's go 5-0 in the Super Contest.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. All right, talk to you next week.